My parents let me stop breathing for 4 minutes because my twin said I was faking. Now CPS, doctors are exposing their years of neglect. Before watching the video, right where you are watching it in the comments, subscribe and like so that more people can watch this video. Enjoy. I'm shaking while I write this because even putting the words down feels surreal. My name is Emily, I'm 26, I'm female, and a twin. And for the first time in my life, I think I'm finally admitting to myself and to strangers on the internet that my parents didn't just favor my sister. They endangered me. They neglected me. And now the truth is blowing up in their faces in ways they never thought possible. The moment that keeps replaying in my head happened 3 weeks ago. I stopped breathing, literally. My chest had locked up, my lips were turning blue, and I collapsed in the living room. My twin, Sarah, 26 and female, stood over me and told my parents I was faking it, faking not breathing. And my parents believed her. For 4 full minutes, they just stood there. My mom even muttered, "Don't give her attention, she's just dramatic." 4 minutes without air. Do you know what that does to your brain? I woke up in the ER with tubes in me, a doctor's voice saying I was lucky to be alive that another minute, and they might have been prepping me for organ donation. That's how close it was. The ER nurse was furious. She asked my parents why they hadn't called 911 immediately. My dad shrugged and said, "She does this for attention." My mom added, "Her twin said she was fine." The nurse's face. God, I'll never forget it. Pure disbelief. That nurse made a report, and that's when CPS and Adult Protective Services got looped in. But to understand how it got here, you need to know what growing up with Sarah and my parents was like. Sarah was always the good one. The pretty twin, the smart twin, the twin who got invited to parties. I was the difficult one. Translation. I had asthma, anxiety, and sometimes needed extra help. My parents never forgave me for that. If Sarah tripped, the whole house stopped to comfort her. If I broke my arm, yes, this happened in 5th grade, my dad told me to walk it off and drove me to urgent care 3 hours later after Sarah's dance class. Every milestone in Sarah's life was a family holiday. My graduation, they skipped it because Sarah had a big presentation for a college group project. And Sarah, she played her role perfectly. Sweet smile in public, but behind closed doors she'd poke every bruise. Told me once that she wished I died at birth so she wouldn't have to share her birthday. She called me defective twin when no one was around. Sometimes when I cried, she'd run to mom and dad and say I was being manipulative. They believed her. Always. That's why, when I was on the floor gasping like a fish, they stood there. They didn't see me. They saw Sarah's version of me. The faker, the attention seeker. Now doctors, social workers, even law enforcement are involved. They're digging into old medical records, asking why I missed so many in childhood appointments, why injuries were untreated for days, why school counselors documented concerns that never got followed up on. It's like someone finally kicked open the rotten foundation I'd been standing on my whole life. And my parents? They're panicking. But me, for the first time, I don't feel crazy. I feel seen. All right. Here goes. Writing this part makes my stomach turn because it's not just about what happened 3 weeks ago. It's about everything that came before it finally being dragged into the light. After the hospital scare, CPS didn't waste any time. They sent a social worker to my apartment the next day. I thought it was just going to be a quick check-in, like, "Are you safe now?" But no, it turned into a full-blown investigation. They started pulling records, interviewing neighbors, teachers from back in the day, even old doctors. And that's when everything I had buried, everything I thought nobody would ever believe, started spilling out. First bombshell. My pediatric records showed years of untreated asthma flare-ups, notes from doctors saying things like, patient needs daily inhaler refill, followed by months of no follow-up visits. Once, in 8th grade, I collapsed during gym. The school nurse called my mom, who apparently told her I was overdramatic and refused to pick me up. The school had to put me on the city bus wheezing to get home. CPS now has that documented. Then came the school reports. I always thought teachers didn't notice. Turns out they did. One counselor had written that I frequently came to class with untreated injuries and signs of emotional neglect. She even called my parents multiple times about it. The notes show their responses range from Emily's just clumsy to her twin says she's making it up. Sarah's word was law, even when I was limping on a sprained ankle. And here's where things got ugly. CPS asked me about Sarah directly, about the way she treated me. I froze. I didn't want to sound like I was just bitter, but the truth spilled out anyway. How she used to lock me out of our shared bedroom so I'd sleep on the floor. How she told everyone at school I was adopted because our real parents didn't want 2 kids. How once, when I had pneumonia, she told Mom I was pretending for attention. And Mom actually took my blanket away so I'd stop being dramatic. I told the social worker everything. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip my coffee cup just to stop from falling apart. And for the first time in my life, someone didn't dismiss it. She just looked at me and said quietly, "Emily, I believe you." Meanwhile, my parents are losing their minds. The minute CPS got involved, they went into damage control. My mom started calling relatives, spinning it as Emily's trying to ruin our family with lies. My dad's been sending me these long, ranting emails about family loyalty and how I'm weaponizing my asthma. Sarah, of course, is doubling down. She posted on Instagram about having to deal with a toxic sibling who craves attention, like I'm some cartoon villain out to ruin her perfect life. But here's the kicker. The doctors aren't buying it. They ran tests after the 4-minute incident, and I've got measurable brain hypoxia from a lack of oxygen. That's not drama. That's science. And the fact that it happened under their watch, that's neglect, plain and simple. Now, CPS wants me to testify about the years of mistreatment. They're building a case, not just against my parents, but also looking at Sarah as a co-abuser. I never thought anyone would use that word for what she did to me. Abuse. But that's what it was. And while all of this is happening, my parents keep calling me begging for family meetings. My dad even showed up at my apartment once, pounding on the door, shouting so loud the neighbors called the cops. I didn't open it. I just sat on the floor, back against the door, shaking while he screamed about how I was killing my own mother with stress. The part of me that grew up begging for their love wanted to unlock that door, but the part of me that almost died because of them, that part stayed frozen and alive. Okay, deep breath. This is the part where things stopped being quiet paperwork and interviews and turned into straight-up chaos. CPS didn't play around. 2 weeks after the hospital incident, they officially opened a neglect case against my parents. I thought it would just mean more check-ins, maybe fines. Nope. They subpoenaed medical and school records, interviewed old doctors, and this part floored me. They actually brought in some of my extended family as witnesses. That's when all hell broke loose. See, my parents had spent years painting me as the difficult twin, the lazy one, the overdramatic one. Sarah was their shining example, and I was the family embarrassment. That narrative held up because nobody dug deeper. But once CPS showed relatives those old reports, missed doctor visits, untreated injuries, the 4-minute near-death moment, suddenly everyone started asking questions my parents couldn't spin. My aunt, Dad's sister, called me crying. She said she never knew how bad it was. She thought I was just quiet, withdrawn, maybe a little dramatic, like my mom always said. She told me she found out I was hospitalized for pneumonia at 14, and my parents never told her. Meanwhile, Sarah got a huge get-well-soon party when she had a sprained wrist. That call broke something open in me. I wasn't crazy. People were finally seeing it. My parents' response? Denial, then rage. My mom called me one night, voice shaking, and hissed, "You're trying to destroy this family after everything we gave you." I laughed, actually laughed, because what exactly had they given me? 4 minutes without breath? Scars no one could see? She lost it, started screaming about how Sarah was the good daughter and I'd always been jealous. Then she hung up before I could even reply. My dad went a different route. Intimidation. He started showing up at my job. I work at a small bookstore, and the first time he stormed in, he grabbed a display of paperbacks and knocked them all onto the floor, yelling, "You're lying to the government. Do you know what you're doing to us?" My manager had to call the security. The second time, he stood outside for 2 hours just pacing, arms crossed, glaring through the glass. Customers were whispering, asking if we needed to call the police. I felt like a little kid again, scared, cornered. And Sarah. God. She thrives in drama. She started posting these cryptic Instagram stories, black and white selfies with captions like, "Some people will do anything for attention," or "Funny how victims always need an audience." Her friends commented stuff like, "Stay strong, queen," and "Toxic siblings are the worst." Meanwhile, I was getting DMs from strangers calling me a liar, saying I was trying to ruin Sarah's life. She turned it into a social war. But here's the thing. The more they screamed, the more they posted, the more evidence CPS collected. My parents were supposed to keep distance during the investigation. Instead, they showed up at my apartment again, this time with Sarah in tow. She pounded on the door, yelling, "Open up! Stop lying about us!" My dad was red-faced, swearing he'd sue me for defamation. I just sat there recording everything on my phone, heart hammering until they finally left. I sent the video straight to my caseworker. The next morning, I got a call. CPS was filing an emergency protective order, which means my parents legally can't contact me until the case is resolved. For the first time in my life, there's a paper barrier between me and them. And it feels both terrifying and freeing. But of course, my parents didn't take that lying down. They escalated again, and this time in a way that dragged more people into it, and left me with a choice I didn't think I'd ever face. All right. This is where everything started boiling over into a full-blown family war. And honestly, it still feels unreal that this is my life. After the protective order went through, my parents and Sarah decided to take their fight public. And I don't just mean vague Instagram posts, I mean full-on smear campaign. It started with Sarah. She posted this long, self-righteous Facebook note. Trit. Literally one of those open letters with dramatic paragraph breaks about how being a twin isn't easy when one person constantly lies, manipulates, and weaponizes mental health. She never used my name, but she didn't have to. Every relative, every family friend knew who she meant. Within hours it had comments like, "You're so strong for speaking out," and "Cutting out toxic people is self-care." One of her friends even called me Munchausen Barbie, I wanted to vomit. Then my parents piled on. My mom wrote this post about raising children in the age of entitlement, painting herself as a martyr who had given everything only to be betrayed by lies. My dad, not subtle as usual, straight up wrote that government overreach is destroying families and called me a proven liar who's weaponizing a health condition. He shared it in some neighborhood group, and suddenly strangers were chiming in about how kids these days are spoiled. I felt like I was drowning in the narrative again, just like when I was little, except now it was online, permanent, and spreading. But then something happened that cracked their perfect story wide open. Remember how CPS had been digging through records? Well, they released their preliminary findings. And one of those findings was that during the 4 minutes I wasn't breathing, my mom and dad admitted to the nurse they didn't call 911 because Sarah had told them I was faking. That went into the official report. And someone, probably my aunt, leaked that page to the rest of the family. Suddenly, my phone blew up. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years were texting, "Wait, is this true? They really let you stop breathing?" My grandmother, who usually sides with my parents no matter what, left a voicemail sobbing, saying she never knew it was this bad. Even some of Sarah's friends quietly messaged me saying the post didn't sit right with them anymore. That's when the tide started to shift. My parents' smear campaign turned into a boomerang, hitting them right back in the face. The more they ranted online, the worse they looked. The more Sarah posted selfies about her strength, the more people asked why she was so obsessed with controlling my narrative instead of, being accountable. And here's the part that still gives me chills. My caseworker told me the DA was considering neglect charges, actual criminal charges. My parents went from smug and loud to panicked overnight. Suddenly, they were begging me privately to work this out as a family, warning me that if charges went through, Sarah's future would be ruined. As if my future wasn't already hanging by a thread thanks to them. And I didn't reply. For once, I let their panic sit in silence. And here's where the hook comes in. I realized if they were going to weaponize the public against me, I could turn that weapon around. Not with lies, with the truth. I had documents, recordings, medical notes, witnesses. I had everything they'd spent years hiding. And if they thought they could shame me into silence, they were about to learn what it feels like to be exposed. Update. Okay, so I didn't expect my first post to blow up like it did. Honestly, I thought maybe a few people would read it, leave a couple of "that sucks, I'm sorry" comments, and I'd go back crying into my coffee. Instead, thousands of you came out swinging, some of you with legal advice, some of you with burn it all down energy, and a few of you just DM'd me saying you believed me, which, yeah, I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Couple of highlights from the comments. One person said, "Your sister sounds like the villain from a Lifetime movie who doesn't even get a redemption arc." That one made me laugh out loud in the middle of my panic spiral. Another said, "You didn't have parents, you had handlers who outsourced reality to Sarah." Ouch. Accurate. And then there were dozens of DMs from people who grew up as the lesser child in a family dynamic like this. Some of them went no contact years ago. Some are still in the trenches. I can't tell you how comforting it is to realize that I'm not crazy, that this is a pattern and not some personal failing of mine. Now for the update on my side, I decided to stop hiding. If Sarah and my parents wanted to wage their war in public, fine, I'd bring receipts. I posted one thing, just one. A photo of my discharge papers from the ER. Blacked out personal info, but the line that said, "Patient presented with acute respiratory arrest, hypoxia." Estimated 4 minutes, no respiration prior to EMS arrival. Underneath, I captioned it, "Faking it, right?" That was it. No rant, no essay. Just the truth in black and white. The fallout was immediate. Family group chats exploded. My cousin forwarded me screenshots. Sarah apparently had a meltdown. She was screaming that I'd ruined her reputation and threatening to sue me for defamation. My mom went into damage control mode, posting this long paragraph about context and misunderstandings. But people weren't buying it. You can't spin medical paperwork. And here's where the sweet revenge kicked in without me even planning it. Sarah's job saw it. I didn't tag her employer, but people talk. Someone shared it, and suddenly her perfect twin mask slipped in the one place she needed it most. She works in childcare, daycare, yeah. And now the licensing board is reviewing whether she's fit to even be around kids. I didn't lift a finger. I just told the truth, and the truth did the cutting for me. Meanwhile, my dad tried one last intimidation stunt. Showed up at my apartment again, pounding on the door and shouting about family honor. Except this time, my neighbor, a retired cop, was home. He came over, recorded the whole thing, and calmly told my dad that if he didn't leave in 30 seconds, he'd be calling his old buddies downtown to come handle it. My dad left sputting threats, but the video is now in CPS's hands. For the first time, I feel like I'm not just surviving their abuse, I'm flipping it back on them. Every lie they told is unraveling because the truth is louder now. And maybe this is petty, but it feels damn good watching Sarah squirm as her golden child crown slips. Here's where it got messy in the best way. Sarah doesn't know how to lose quietly. She's been handed golden twin status her whole life, so the second she felt that slipping, she went nuclear. She showed up at my aunt's house, uninvited, where some relatives were gathered, and launched into this dramatic crying performance about how I was mentally unstable and out to destroy her. She sobbed that I'd doctored paperwork. Yeah, apparently the ER and CPS are part of my master scheme now. My aunt, bless her, didn't buy it. She told Sarah point blank, "Emily almost died. You need to sit down and shut up." For the first time ever, Sarah didn't get the sympathy card she was playing for, but she wasn't done. She tried a last-ditch look-at-me stunt. She went on Instagram Live. Tears, trembling voice, saying she'd been betrayed by family and that people didn't know the real Emily. Except, and this is where karma really stepped in, halfway through her pity stream, someone commented, "If you let your sister stop breathing, maybe stop crying online and go apologize." Then more comments piled on. "Isn't your sister's paperwork public? Why are you making this about you?" Watching the playback later, I swear you can see the moment she realizes she's lost control of the story. And here's where I got my revenge. I stayed silent online. No rebuttals, no long posts. Just one move. I sent a packet of documents, medical records, school reports, CPS findings, to every relative who'd ever dismissed me as the dramatic one. I included a handwritten note. "For years you only heard Sarah's side. Here's mine." The response? Explosive. Suddenly my phone was blown up with apologies. Cousins who'd mocked me at Christmas saying they didn't realize. Even my grandmother, who once told me to be more like Sarah, called sobbing that she'd failed me. My parents, of course, saw this shift happening and panicked. They tried rallying the family with a big meeting, but no one showed except Sarah. Apparently my uncle even said, "We've all read the documents. You can't spin your way out of this." The poetic part? Sarah tried to lash out at me directly afterward. She left a note on my apartment door, torn and crumpled, in her messy handwriting. "You've destroyed this family. Hope you're happy." I laughed when I saw it, because for once, it wasn't me destroying anything. They destroyed themselves by never believing me, by letting me rot in neglect. All I did was hold up a mirror. And now, CPS confirmed it. The DA is moving forward with the neglect charges against my parents. Sarah's being investigated by her licensing board. The perfect family facade is crumbling piece by piece, and I'm not lifting a finger to save it. The irony is, all my life I begged them to see me. Now the whole damn world does. Reddit said, Update 2. I didn't plan on posting again, but so much has happened I feel like I owe you all the continuation. Also, I can't lie. It feels good knowing there are people out there rooting for me when my own parents never did. So the fallout? Way worse and way better than I expected. First off, Sarah, remember how I said her daycare license was under review? Yeah, it's gone now. Officially revoked. Turns out neglect investigations aren't a good look when you're supposed to care for children. The board cited concerns for safety and professional conduct. She tried to spin it as a temporary setback. But let's be real, who's going to trust the woman who let her own twin stop breathing? She's been spiraling on social media and posting sad quotes about losing everything. And Reddit, I swear to God, one of you screenshotted her "Stay Strong, Queen" captions and sent it back to me with the comment, "Stay unemployed, Queen." I cackled. Now, my parents. The DA filed charges. Child neglect and medical neglect going back years. My mom completely unraveled. She's been calling everyone, sobbing that she didn't know any better and trusted Sarah. But there are doctor notes, school reports, everything with her signature. She can't hide. My dad is angry, not guilty angry, more like humiliated angry. He smashed a framed family photo in their living room. My aunt sent me a picture of the shards on the carpet with the caption, "Guess Sarah's halo cracked." The family is split down the middle. Half of them, the ones who always worship Sarah, are whispering that I've gone too far. The other half are loudly saying, "Finally." My grandma even told Sarah she was ashamed of her. That shook me. I've never heard anyone in this family speak to Sarah like that. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. People at my job found out. Not from me, from Facebook leaks. I braced for judgment, but instead, my manager hugged me. Told me she'd gone through something similar with a sibling. She said, "You're stronger than you know." My coworkers covered my shifts when I had court dates. For the first time, a community rallied around me instead of against me. And me? I feel lighter. Not healed, not yet, but lighter. Like the weight I carried since childhood isn't mine anymore. I'm not the defective twin. I'm not the liar. I'm the survivor who finally spoke up. But I'm not going to pretend it's all peace and roses. My parents violated the protective order again last week. Showed up outside my building at 1 a.m., screaming that I was sending them to jail. My neighbor, the retired cop, called it in immediately. Police showed up, and guess what? My parents were arrested on the spot for violating the order. I watched them get cuffed from my window. For once I didn't feel like the powerless kid. I felt like someone who finally had protection. Some of y'all told me to burn the whole bridge down. I think I did. But the flames? They're lighting up everything they tried to hide. And honestly, watching Sarah scramble, watching my parents' perfect image crumble, it's the sweetest revenge I never thought I'd get. Here's the last piece of this story. And honestly, it feels less like an ending and more like finally stepping into a life that was always waiting for me. After my parents got arrested for violating the protective order, things moved fast. Court dates were set. CPS handed over their mountain of evidence. The DA stacked charges of medical neglect, reckless endangerment, and even failure to protect. For once, it wasn't me on trial in their court of opinion. It was them in an actual courtroom. Sarah wasn't charged, but the licensing board's decision gutted her. No more daycare, no more perfect future. And without that identity, she's unraveling. She tried texting me, pages of it, half venom, half begging. "You've ruined everything. I hope you're proud." That's, "Please, Em, you're my sister. Can we fix this?" I didn't respond. For years I would have jumped at any scrap of attention from her. Now, I let the silence answer. The sweetest part came at our last family gathering. Court mandated, not voluntary. The judge had ordered a mediation attempt, which meant we were all in the same room. My parents looked small for the first time in my life. Not towering, not powerful, just two tired people caught in the mess they made. Sarah tried to speak, her voice breaking, but I cut her off. I pulled out something I'd been holding onto for weeks. The ruined photo frame my aunt sent me a picture of. The one my dad smashed. I'd picked up the shards myself, taped them back together, jagged and ugly, and I slid it just across the table. "This is what you did to me. You can't tape over it and pretend it never broke. I'm done trying to fit into your picture." No screaming, no dramatics, just finality. I walked out of that room lighter than I have ever been. Now, I'm rebuilding. I'm in therapy. Real therapy, not that I'm your dramatic stop crying my parents used to push. My boss gave me extra hours, and my coworkers have basically adopted me into their found family circle. My aunt invited me to live with her for a while, but I said no. I needed to know I could stand on my own 2 feet. My apartment is small, but it's mine. My air feels clean here. And I did something symbolic. Something for me. I bought myself a birthday cake. Just one. No twin name on it. No shared candles. I lit it, sang to myself, and blew it out without anyone telling me to share. It was small, stupid maybe, but it felt like reclaiming something Sarah and my parents never let me have. A life that's mine alone. They may never admit what they did. They may scream until their throats bleed about how I betrayed them. But I know the truth. CPS knows. The courts know. And now so do all of you. They let me stop breathing once, but this time I get to decide how I breathe, and I'm never letting them take that from me again.